to get connected. So I'll make my part very brief so I can get with her and get her joining for just a second. But I just want to say welcome everybody to the third iteration of our Education Invitational. Today is actually, we have the pleasure of having all of our senior instructors participating with us today as a conversation and dialogue. And I'm sure you guys know that a senior instructor, they become one because they've been highly experienced in a multitude of platforms and a wide array of places and experiences. And it takes a rather bit of a gauntlet, not just to become a GRI instructor, but then to become a senior instructor on top of that. And so we actually invited our 6 senior instructors here with us today. And so that way they're able to dialogue with you and almost act as a panelist discussion to talk about education. For any great education experience, you need to have obviously a course and instructor that's approved. You need to have someone to teach the course. You have to have someone to administer the course. And so with that, we actually have all those components here with us today. And so our goal is to use the senior instructors to pick their brains to optimize the member experience at the end of the day, to make sure it's a better experience for them. So with that, I would like, Steve, if you want to introduce our senior instructors, I will get a hold of Rhonda and get her connected.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. And so would you like for me to go ahead and introduce all of them at once or individually as we get into this thing? I'm going to guess
you can
everybody
do all
right
at once.
now. Okay, super. All right. So Pat Strong. Pat began her teaching career as a national trainer for Century 21 and has since trained thousands of agents across the nation. I'm one of them. In light of her commitment to education, Pat was awarded the TAR Educator of the Year, inducted into the Reback Hall of Fame, and even served 4 years on the Educational Standards Advisory Committee for TREC. Pat received the Excellence in Education Lifetime Award from TAR in 2016 and served as president of the Texas chapter of Reback, formerly known as CRB, for 2017. Pat's motto was strong on education. Let's give Pat a hand.
Hey, thank you.
All right. And our next senior instructor is Mac McFarland. After returning from the Marine Corps, Mac earned his license in 1997. He had the opportunity to excel as an agent, achieving the top producer status for a multi-office franchise 2 years in a row. Transitioning into training and management allowed him to build on his foundation of learn as much as I can so that I can help as many people as I can. Currently serving on the Texas Realtors Professional Development Management Team, and as a senior instructor, he's also involved in the local association as the MLS chair and on the board of directors. Mac is also director of agent development and quality control for one of the largest companies in South Texas. So give Mac a hand. All right, next, you all know Candy Cook. Candy is a passionate instructor who teaches on a full-time basis. She works hard to make sure that her students enjoy the educational process while learning information to use in their business. She's increased student involvement by also offering resources through a Facebook page. Both students and associations use the platform to start continued communication about classes. Candy, how many people are on your Facebook page?
10,542 today.
Man, that is a lot of people. All right, so everybody give Candy a hand. Next, hopefully she's come on to the call, is Rhonda Hamilton. Rhonda is a motivational speaker in the true sense of the word. She believes it's about finding that place of deep satisfaction in your personal and professional life, being fulfilled, happy, and content with who you are on the inside and where you're going on the outside. Since becoming a full-time speaker, trainer, and coach, she's received numerous awards in her speaking career. And in 2007, sorry, my thing just wiped out there. In 2007, she was inducted into the Reback Hall of Fame for her influences in the sales industry. So let's give Rhonda a hand. Are you with me?
Hey.
All right. Next up is Stephen Etzel. Stephen is a seasoned and self-motivated real estate manager and training professional offering 21 years of experience with an average survey score of 4.95 out of 5. With his comprehensive background in real estate, technology, digital marketing, and business development, along with his 3 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree. He brings a unique perspective to the classroom that is engaging and informative. Let's give Stephen a hand. I don't know if you're clapping or not, really, but I'm going to assume that you are because these are amazing people. Finally, I want to introduce Marion Napoleon. Marion is the broker owner of Unlimited Realty Solutions in Grand Prairie and a senior instructor for the Texas Association of Realtors, or the Texas Realtors, as they are known now. She has enjoyed a successful career as a licensed realtor since 2001, and for over 30 years, Marion has devoted her life to changing the lives of others. She's a certified life coach, author, nationwide corporate and Christian motivational speaker, and my favorite part of it, she's a former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and an active member in their alumni association and an active member in the NFL Alumni Cheerleaders Association. I happen to know 2 former Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. So let's give Marion a hand. All right, back to you, Jon. And
All right.
there we are.
No, I'm here. Sorry. I had to unmute myself in 14 different places. One of these days I'm going to figure all this out. Well, thank you for the introductions, Steve, and thank you, senior instructors, for participating in this conversation. Just to give you guys a quick heads up, we actually have local association staff from across Texas that are here to hear your input, to ask some questions and dialogue. Much like last week, guys, this is an open conversation. I do have some prompted questions that I was going to ask from our senior instructors, and as readily noted, with 6 of them, and they all love to talk, it's quite possible that they will, we might run out of time. So instructors, please keep your question or answers as concise as you can, just to make sure we can keep to the 1 hour limit. And then in addition to that, association staff from across Texas, if you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and either ask your question at the end, or B, you can even put it in the chat feature and we will make it a point to try and get it out there as well. So with that, the very first question I will ask, and I will throw this to Pat first, and I'll run through all 6 of you so that way you'll know which one to go, but Pat first. And this is true for all of you guys, so you have more time to think about it. If you can answer either one of these 2 questions, why did you begin teaching, or what is your favorite part of teaching? Pat.
Okay, I began teaching because that was a passion. Having been in real estate since 1980, this is my 40th year. I did all of the above and found that what I loved the most was seeing people grow and helping them. So I found that a passion. 2005, I went full time.
Great. Okay, Rhonda, how about you?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Did you say me?
Yep, please.
Same reason. I just love people. I love agents, and I love just trying to help them with skills that they can go back and put into their daily practice, things that help them be better agents, be more successful with what they do. That just is very rewarding to me.
Awesome. Thank you. Candy, how about you?
Why did I start teaching? Because I thought I signed up for an IT class and was so impressed with Pat, and Mac didn't beat me up because I was so obnoxious sitting next to him. I fell into teaching. I swore I'd never be a teacher, and I absolutely adore what I do. This is the coolest thing that I could have ever gotten to do.
Awesome, thanks. Marion, how about you? You're still muted.
Hi, everybody. I started teaching actually as an educator and quickly realized that I was not gifted to work with little kids. So had a desire to try the big ones and see if they would behave. And as an educator with Texas Realtors, I can tell you they do not, but I love it. Okay. Love it, love it.
Thanks, Marianne. How about you, Mac?
Some of the same things. Just enjoy sharing things we've learned, and help the agents out there that are trying to become successful in the business.
Awesome, thanks. And how about you, Stephen?
I got teaching, I started teaching in college. I started teaching paralegal classes, which was divorce law, which was always fun. And then I also started teaching real estate law and so forth. And the reason why I got into teaching was, number one, to help me get through college. And number two, I started really enjoying it. And so I just kept teaching and teaching and teaching, and it grew on me and grew on me and grew on me. And I really enjoy helping other people. And not only do I like helping students, but I also like helping other trainers to advance their careers as well.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Okay, so that was the easy questions. Now we're going to get into some that are a little bit more specific. And keep in mind, the context is when we're talking to association staff, we're mainly focused on administration and logistics, but you as the instructors, you have your perspective as well. And so we want to just get your feedback on what you think regarding this, or what you've seen either in your own experience or what you've heard from other people. And so when you're looking at like the classroom setup, I mean, obviously in this remote setting, it's a little bit different, but you can also include this environment as well, or even a hybrid thereof. But when you're looking at a class setup and the logistics to enhance the classroom experience as far as the members' engagement and understanding the content and the desire to come back to class, what are some things that really just caught your attention of, hey, this is, if you can do this, we found that this is the magic sauce, the special sauce that people love and they want to come back to class over and over when this happens, whether it's a room setup, whether it's food, whatever it might be. Like, this is the magic sauce that is a really good thing time and time again. So I will start this time with Rhonda. How would you answer that question?
Gosh, that opens up a big can of worms, John. I think that there's so much to that question. Wow. If you're talking about in the virtual world, for me, I think that it's approaching it from the standpoint of like you do a live class, which would be where you're going to include a lot of involvement and engagement. I think that even though people are sitting at home behind their computers, they're going to go to sleep unless you really engage them in the class. I think that you have to do things like break them out into breakout rooms. You've got to do some polls. You have to bring them in. You've got to pose questions that get their brains working, where you really have to get them thinking so that they want to ask questions and give feedback and use the chat where they drop things into the chat. You just have to get them involved in the whole learning process and keep them going, because otherwise they're going to lose interest, just like they do in a live classroom setting.
I forgot to unmute myself. Okay, thanks, Rhonda. How about Candy? Is there anything in particular regarding the classroom logistics that will enhance the classroom experience?
All right.
If you had one takeaway.
What my one takeaway is, I think most people are all to live broadcast at this point. I asked my monitors to get involved. I think I have 4 or 5 of them in here from today's class. They're all waving at you. We take our time to make sure that the students are doing well. The monitors are interacting with the students as well. When we go into breakout sessions, the monitors actually go into their own breakout session where they get to meet each other, they get to talk, and one can say, hey, I'm going here. If you need help, I'm not going to be available, but I'll pick up for this. I think it takes a whole village to make this all interactive and working together. As the instructor, I'm herding cats constantly. And I think to make our educational sessions be the most successful, I think it takes all of us working together. It's not just a speaking head in the front of the room. And as Rhonda said, polls, breakout sessions, we do all kinds of different things. I even have dress up days now to try to get people interactive.
Great. Thanks, Candy. How about Marion? What's your one takeaway?
For logistics, I think probably the one takeaway is being prepared for the class before the class starts.
Okay. And just really quick as a follow-up to that on being prepared, you're talking about you as an educator being prepared and also the association staff being prepared and ready for any potential misfires or what have you?
Yes. So basically, calling the association staff the day or the week prior to class, knowing how many students you have so that you can have some idea of how many breakout rooms you're going to have, and the global preparation of getting that virtual classroom set up for a live experience, meaning your breakouts are set up, your polls are already set up, everything, and making sure that the association staff know who you are so that they're prepared when you pass over the co-hosting position to them and letting you know your expectations. All of those things are part of just making sure that you are prepared before the class starts.
Yeah, I'm going to tack on to that as well, Marion, because what I also heard is not only preparation, but also the sense of over-communication. And that preceding communication before the day of the class, just to set expectations so everybody's on the same page and everybody knows their responsibilities. It sounds like it's a really good idea. So thank you for letting me add on just a little bit to that, but I think that's a really good point. How about, I've lost my sheet. Oh, it's in front of me. Mac. Did we lose you? Oh, there.
I would definitely agree with that. Communicating prior to the class. And one of the things, and I don't do as much as some of the others do with this, but one of the things is make sure the books are out there and that they've had the opportunity to download them is pretty important. The other thing is in that chat where that file is so that we can upload files as we go through this if we need to, if we have something we want to share, because that can come in really handy sometimes.
Awesome, thanks. And then let's see, Stephen.
I think for the most part with the logistics is down pretty good. I would like to get a list of students before we go to class. That'd be good. Just kind of get a number count and kind of a little information about them as well. Just kind of get an idea of what kind of breakout groups, if you want to do a breakout group, because a lot of the classes we teach, we have different skill levels. And sometimes you want to make sure that people are kind of in the same skill level or background. And then one of the biggest one of the biggest takeaways I take away with what people really enjoy is being interactive and involved, like calling on them by name. Like, hey, Pat, how do you feel about this? Ken, do you feel the same way? Keeping them involved the same exact way you would if you're in a classroom environment. They feel kind of isolated at home. I know they're in a class, but they still do feel isolated and they still want to be part of a group and they still want to be able to ask questions of a group. And I've had many students say the reason why they like the live classes is because they like to hear the questions being asked and also to ask questions because they learn from not only instructors, but also students as well. And the more we can bring that in helps them out quite a bit.
Awesome, thanks. And how about Pat?
Wow, I love being last. You left me nothing. Ditto for everything. The biggest thing is the communication between the board and the instructor. I think another thing that will help build the classes is there are a lot of people looking for certain instructors. My suggestion to the boards that I've worked with in the past is put the name of the instructor visible who's going to be teaching the class. That can draw a lot of people for you guys into the classroom. But communication, being prepared all the time, I find now I said I would never do it. Deb's probably laughing herself to death there because as a live instructor, I went, I'm not doing that dead thing. And so now that I have two monitors, I'm like Stephen, just looking at people, I feel almost connected, and we do air hugs a lot. So we'll do air hugs and over and above some of these other things. And all the other things the instructor said were right on target.
And I'm not laughing at you, Pat. I'm very proud of you.
Never say never.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did find out the difference in teaching when I first started doing it TR is it was so far and I can't see far away. And now with my monitors, it's like they're almost in the classroom because I can see everybody's face, and it makes all the difference in the world. And if you call people by name, they're more connected. But the key is creative teaching. If you have an instructor who just lectures, you're going to lose people. You've got to do breakout rooms, like Rhonda said, and polls, and I think Candy said that, but give them just like you would in a regular classroom. That'd be mine.
Perfect. Thank you for that. In the interest of time and making sure that you guys also have a chance to feedback as well, and as Pat had just indicated, that especially after the sixth one, we're probably going to see a lot of similar responses. So what I might actually do now is change it up just a little bit, and I will make an open forum for the senior instructors to be able to respond, and then before we move to the next one. So this question that I'm going to throw out to you guys is actually about classroom management mishaps. Especially being in the business and teaching for as many times as you guys have, I'm sure there's been a time or two where something didn't go perfect. And in the process, now, of course, being a senior instructor, that means that you've probably overcome many, many, many obstacles. My question to you about mishaps is, what can association staff do as a preventative measure to help other instructors ensure that that doesn't happen to them going forward? And so is there anything that any parting wisdom that you can pass along to our association staff about things that you can do to ensure that something crazy doesn't happen for those other instructors or you?
I'll give one, John. I'll start.
Yeah.
Being the newest to doing this full time, I got people in breakout rooms and I didn't know how to get them out. So I said, you're going to be in breakout rooms for like probably about 10 minutes and you'll get a warning. And then my taskbar went away and I didn't know where it went. And so I realized, I've started making a list of blooper things. I realized that I had to get out of the PowerPoint so I could see my taskbar. So they were in the breakout rooms about 2 minutes longer. They didn't care, they didn't know, but I was freaking out. That's nothing the association could help with. It was just a blooper thing for an instructor. So I've started a blooper list, and that would be my first blooper. Candy's got one.
Hey, when Pat was doing that, one thing that I found is that I now make my monitors co-hosts. I actually completely lost internet one day. I kind of caught on that it was going away. I said to my monitors, and I said, I think I've got a problem. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be gone. I'll try to get on. And I actually think I got on my phone to get back in, but I threw them into breakout rooms. I told the monitors what was going on. Just being there, just letting them be there to help out. You know, and John also got the call when my monitor put everybody off of the ceiling. So that's one, Pat, that's a freak out. And so you've got to learn to be patient, but also letting your monitors know you might have a problem. I got a blanket, you know, just be there, be aware that sometimes they need you. Anybody else?
I think for me, if they could see the behind the scenes of what we as instructors go through to make a perfect scenario for them, John can probably vouch for the number of times that I call him in total hysterical panic because my monitor goes out the day of training. I had a cat of which I'm petrified of, and one of my sons was going outside to take the trash, and a cat came in the middle of the classroom in my study with me. And so what I did was I just said, brief pause, please. And I paused and I was screaming around, and how do I get this cat out? And then come back on so that you guys can have a wonderful experience. And we're like, so what did you think about that one question? Not knowing that our lives in the backgrounds are going absolutely haywire. So if we can put ourselves in that position as instructors and understand that, it makes it easier for us to respect all of the things that are happening in your background, because we've seen absolutely everything. So having the monitors as a co-host serves for their ability to step in if we need a little bit of time, and reaching out to those co-hosts and saying, you have full control, because that's what we give them when we make them co-host. We give them full control to step in and say, hey, everybody, this is, you know, Connie or whatever. And just want you to know that we've got some trainings come up, but to fill those spaces when the instructors are melting down in the background, so we can come back smiling like, so what you think about that sponsor in the meantime? And we're able to keep the classes flowing, keep the experiences fun and engaging for the classroom. And in some cases, we may even have to share with them what's going on. And when we can share that, it makes the virtual environment, it brings it to life for them and gives them, you know, something to enjoy and talk about as the day goes on.
Thanks, Marion. Anybody else?
I think John just,
No?
John, I think just realizing that we can't possibly predict all the things that could go wrong. I mean, it's like something new is going to happen. And so just to realize that when it does happen, we're going to deal with it. We're just going to get through it. And we do have a support system. The associations have been great. They have people there to help us. You've been great. Texas Realtors has been great. You have been a wonderful resource, John. I think everybody can say, you know, we have picked up the phone a number of times and said, help. And you've been there. The associations have been wonderful to reach out and say, what do you need? They've been great with their monitors. They're there in the background. So we realize these things are going to happen, and just keeping calm when they do happen and saying, okay, this is happening, but we're going to get through it. So we're just going to work through it, and it's going to be all right. And people are forgiving too. Our students are forgiving. They realize this is a different world for everybody right now. So
Mac and Stephen, you guys have anything?
I'll just jump in real quick. And when you're talking about just about anything can happen. Last week I was teaching a class and accidentally hit the mic and knocked it over on my laptop, and everything froze. And we had just, as was being described earlier, we had just went into to a group session, and I couldn't do anything. Everything was froze. So I had to call Humberto there in McAllen and tell him that I got to shut everything down to get back in. That's the only solution I had. So things are going to happen. Just staying calm, and which is hard for some of us, but it's staying calm and working through it. It worked out great. We were back on. Nobody knew anything had even happened, but things are going to go wrong once in a while. It's okay. We'll fix it.
Stephen, you got anything to add?
I was just going to say, I'm so glad we're not perfect, because I use a lot of that for props. People, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've used that for stories or other classes. It kind of loosens them up as well when you can use it for examples. I had a situation where my security system in the computer turned on, and you know how Zoom, they have a little problem with people hacking it. So the security system kicked on and shut off my video. And I had no idea the video was off for 15 minutes, and I'm still talking. I'm just talking and talking because I'm so caught up in this thing. I don't know what the heck I was saying, but I was so caught up in it. And then I turned back on again, and people are like, you were gone for 15 minutes, and we didn't even know you were missing. I was like, I don't know if that was good or that was bad, but the good thing about it was, you know, you could still talk through what you're talking through and still have people engaged. That's amazing. You know what I mean? And people are still interested in what you had to say, and they haven't cut out on you. So I thought that was kind of an amazing thing that, you know, when you're honest and upfront with your students, and especially in this environment that we're in, things happen. And they made great props. I mean, people were laughing about that. The rest of the class were like, when are you going to turn back off again? You know, that kind of thing. But the good thing about it was it kept them engaged. Everybody enjoyed it. And, you know, it happens. It always happens.
You know, the one resounding thing I heard from all of you guys is really, you know, you guys, especially instructors, are actually contracted to be able to present to the class regardless of what happens, and you can't predict everything, right? But I think that what you can do is have a plan. So if something goes wrong, like I know when we offer our class via broadcast, we actually have 2 people on call at all times. One of them is actually to the local association staff, and one of them is dedicated to only the instructor. So that way when something goes wrong, instead of having one point person, and let's say that like the mic thing happened with Mac and it was on a broadcast with 15 locations, we don't have 16 people calling one person and one of the instructor and the other 15 are somebody else. It kind of helps them divide and conquer a little bit to get the communication out a little bit faster. And so whatever your plan is, have a plan. That's really important when you're offering classes and participating in them and saying, okay, this is the expectation. If something happens, which is probable that it will, it's just a matter of what is it. And so what's the plan? And that way we can keep things going smoothly. And as you guys have mentioned, participants are forgiving. They're very forgiving as long as they know, and they know what's expected of them, and they know everything's going to be okay. And so I really appreciate that feedback. One other question I have for you guys, and again, it's another open-ended one. My question really is, do you have any feedback from class participants regarding this current education environment? Now, when I said that, I'm not specifically talking about remote-only education, just FYI. This current education environment is just a demographic of a participant in a class, period. Even as early as January or as late as January, all the way till now. Like, what kind of participants are you seeing, and what are they looking for in a class from your perspective? Candy, you're muted. You're still muted.
I knew that.
Okay.
What I've found is that the students are saying that the new format they really like. We're finding that they're interacting. They're not sitting next to their competitors. They're telling me, and they actually told Lori Levy last week that they would prefer to be in the new format where they can interact with people across the state. I'm hearing about referrals going on. People are networking. People are learning how to do new things. Everybody's working together. I think it doesn't matter what kind of class it is. We've got to find ways to engage and to make everybody comfortable.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I think for the most part, most people are enjoying it as long as it's not more than a certain amount of time. There's an old saying, your mind can only absorb as much as your butt can bear. So, after about 4 hours, most people say, I'm numb. So I think a lot of the learning experiences, if we can keep it around 4 to 6 hours, I think going forward, the broadcast is going to be great. But I think a lot of people, like for the GRI classes and so forth, I think they like to be in the class because they're longer periods. That's kind of the feedback I've been getting. But they do enjoy the fact that people are coming from around other states to also give other input as well, like Candy said.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Well, I've actually taught a couple of designation courses that have been 8-hour days each, and they actually, I think, have really enjoyed it, even though they've been long days. They seem to have enjoyed the class. I mean, 8-hour days are long, whether it's sitting at home in front of your computer or whether it's sitting in a live classroom. It's an 8-hour day sitting there in a learning environment. But it seems like they've enjoyed those as well in this environment.
I agree with you, Rhonda, because I've been doing a lot of certification designations, both Texas and some of the other states. But I have found the more unexpected engagements we have, the more they enjoy it, especially when you go over 5 hours. So always in the evening, I always try to reserve time in the evenings, right about 3 o'clock, when I know their brains are dead, and you can tell because they fall asleep right before your very eyes. But I'll have some type of engagement in that evening, whether it is a dance. What I found that they love, the classroom things. My favorite request is if you're happy and you know it. And I always ended by saying, I cannot believe I've got all of these adults, engaging in such a thing. But I found because people are at home, they're alone, we don't know what their lives are like behind us. They love the ability to come into an experience that makes them happy. And whether that's with music, whether it's with role playing at the end of the day, but it's about engagements. And I found that most of them absolutely love the ability to zoom in wherever they are and participate. And like Candy said, communicate with others. They use the chat feature. as an opportunity to build relationships relationships with others. So I think it has really been an amazing way for the real estate community to kind of virtually grow and expand in education, but also in relationships and referrals and so on. So my people most of them seem to really like this current environment in all ways, John. Okay.
If nobody else wants to say something, I've got something just to throw in real quickly. Steve said he likes to get the names of people. What I do is that at the very beginning of my class, I ask somebody who's proficient at Google Docs to put together a Google Doc and allow the students to put their names in, their contact, their email, their contact, and where they work. I put it on them to do it. It's not me. And every one of my classes lately has had a Google Doc put together that they all can share and have each other's contact information. Just, it's an easy way to get it going. I don't have to do anything. I don't touch it. So just throwing it out there.
Did you go away, John?
John, you're muted.
God, so irritating. I swear I do that every single time. You would think I'd figure it out by now. I'm just going to town saying Pat, Mac, Rhonda, anybody? Oh, I guess not. Okay. So let's say it again. Pat, Mac, Rhonda, you guys have anything in particular you want to add to that? You good? All right.
I guess I could add something, just a little something. It's not a big deal, but one thing I've noticed at the beginning when I'm doing my little intro, we talk about the different Zoom tools that they have access to. We talk about the chat, but I also always share my cell phone number with them, and I tell them, if you're not comfortable sending me a message in chat, if you have a question or something that you want to talk about and you don't want to put it in chat, feel free to send me a text. And I bought this handy little cell phone holder that I prop up right here beside myself when I'm teaching. And I put my settings on so that my phone doesn't go to sleep. And I can see if someone sends me a text during class. And believe it or not, there are some people who are shy that do not want to send a question through the chat. They want to send their question privately. Even though you chat, you can send it privately, but I always change chat so that people aren't chatting privately back and forth, because I want to, it's just my own personal thing. I want to save chat so that it's just public. So that I can go back and really see the questions that are being put forth. Anyway, they will send me messages privately through my text, ask me some question privately. And so I feel like it's a separate way that they can actually engage. They can ask a question that they're too shy to actually send through the chat or publicly. And some people seem to like to have the ability to send a text. It's just something to share.
Yeah. Thanks, Rhonda. Mac, you had something?
I do. Just a couple things real quick. One is if there's going to be a sponsor in that communication that we have prior to the class, making sure the instructor's aware of it as well, and making sure if they have anything they're going to show, again, we can upload that in the file and share that with people so that they can benefit from it as well, because it's important to take care of them too. And the other thing is, when we're talking about the groups, and just something small, Steve was talking about the 8-hour days. I found it beneficial to mix the groups up. You do the group breakouts, mix them up. So in the morning, and let them know in advance that we're going to mix them up so they get a chance to establish rapport with other agents instead of just one group the entire time. In a large classroom, that was one of the downfalls with it. But I've noticed it's different here, because in a large classroom, they all cluster together. If you have GRI for 4 days, they stay together the whole 4 days unless you make them move. And here you have the option of taking control of that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That response actually feeds directly into the very next question I was going to have for you guys, which is what can association staff do to help with the classroom experience. And we've talked about a couple of things. We've talked about communication beforehand and just letting you guys know like what to expect. You also had mentioned about anything outside of the class, like for instance, a sponsor or what, if there's a presentation, just that way you can be ready for it. So we've identified those two things, but is there anything else that association staff can actually do to help with the classroom experience from your perspective?
I'll start. It depends on if we're using our personal Zoom account or if we're using an association Zoom account. If we're using an association Zoom account, being able to get with that association early on and being able to make sure that the presets are there, for example, some may give us the co-host capability. But the problem we run into with co-host is you can't do your breakouts, you can't do your polls, you can't do a lot of the things that you can normally do when you have full co-host ability. Also, they may pass the hosting to us a lot of times, but configurations and settings in the background are not always correct. So as an instructor, especially if they're logging in with not a lot of time, we don't want to have to go through as the host to try to find your settings to figure out how do I keep the students from going to the waiting rooms? Because if you're in a class of 120 students or whatever, and you have a setting set to where everybody has to go in the waiting room, that can become a nightmare for everyone involved to where you're having to admit each student. So I think really understanding upfront before you schedule the class, what's going to be the most effective setup for your classroom, your Zoom session or a personal Zoom session that's already preset with all of their polls and everything, their breakouts ahead of the classroom. So I think that's been one of the biggest dilemmas that I've run into. I don't know about the other instructors.
I would totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Maybe to have a conversation with the instructor regarding if the associations are using their Zoom account, having a conversation with the instructor about what the instructor is going to be using in their presentation, so that they can make sure that their settings are set so that it works with their settings. If they're going to have a breakout, if they're going to have a waiting room, to make sure that the tone is on. You know, I knew an instructor recently that the waiting room was set, but there was no tone set for when someone enters the waiting room. And so they actually had a student that fell out. Something happened with their technology. They fell out of the class. They re-entered the class, but of course they went into the waiting room. No one knew they were in the waiting room. They were in there for 15 minutes because there was no tone that notified anyone that they were in the waiting room. So no one knew they were there. So to make sure that those settings are in place that work with what's going to be happening in the presentation. And another thing that's really helpful is when the monitor is actively watching the students. It's funny, I'm teaching a class today and I have a really great monitor on my class today, and he happened to notice, because it's a big class, and so he happened to notice that someone was driving in their car. You know, so he caught that first thing. When you have a really good monitor that's watching the students to make sure that they're participating and where they're supposed to be, that's really helpful for the instructor, so that we're not trying to do too many things at one time. We can focus on teaching. That's really helpful.
Thanks.
And here I was going
Jamie?
to ask what your strangest experience with the students was, and I think that's certainly one of them. We've heard about that before. Students driving while taking a class, not riding along in the car, but actually driving.
They do it all the time. If you don't warn them, they do it all the time. Look at the heads all going.
And they were warned. It was in my opening slides. We went through the whole thing about leave your camera. It has to be stable. You can't move it around. You can't walk around with it. It has to stay in one spot, the whole thing. But anyway, as it turns out, she had an emergency. Her mother fell. And so she had gone over to see about her mom, but still she was driving in the car.
Candy.
I think one of the things is in I'm listening to how Rhonda wants things set up, and I listened to Marion how she wants it set up. I think associations, you need to understand that each one of us has our own specific way of doing things and ways that we put the pieces together and how we do it. You know, I know that you guys want some of the control, but those of us, there's 6 of us sitting here who teach a whole lot. And we'd really like to have the ability to come in. You hire us because of how we teach. Let us teach. Let us come in and do it. And I'm watching Steve. Each one of us is unique in what we do. And I think that understanding that, I actually negotiated up front with the boards of, if you're going to sign in, you know, I asked for full host capabilities because I use every piece of Zoom that I can. I'm hoping that as we go along, everybody gets to learn how to do these pieces and how to look for things and how to save things and what chats work and everything. I think that we're still testing this out and learning it.
Thanks, Candy. Anybody else? Pat? Nope.
I'm good. Ditto for
Okay.
those.
All right. So at this time, what I'd like to do, I didn't see too many chat things, but I often lose chat because I lose my video. So Shiloh, do we have any chat questions of any kind at this time? We want to open up to, thanks. We want to open up to the staff then. If you guys have any questions in particular you want to throw out there, now's a great time to be able to pick their brain to see ways that we can implement new policies or expectations through the way the associations and instructors dialogue with each other. So does anybody have anything? Tough crowd. Wow.
I was going to say, LaDawn, Debbie, you guys were told you had to ask questions.
I know, but they gave such good information. I mean, there's no questions, but I mean, I do have a couple of comments, like just some things after what everybody just said. Just when Marion said about calling ahead of time, and one of the cool things is I now know more instructors than I used to, because I had never seen a class with Marion before now. And when she called to get the head count and all that, I thought that was pretty cool. I love the monitor breakout rooms. I know Candy's doing it. I don't know if anybody, but I have learned and learned a lot about other associations and met so many different people that do the same thing that I do. So that's pretty cool. But so yeah, not really any questions. I do love it though. And I don't know about anybody else, but since we've been working at home and now back here, I don't know if I can work without the lull of the voices in the background anymore. So if we do live classes, I'm gonna have to sit in the classroom and work.
It has been beneficial to be a part of the Zoom classes, because not only are we hearing the students talk, but we're hearing the instructor and we're getting educated as well.
Nice. Let me ask you this. So we just asked the instructors if there's anything that local association staff can do to help with the classes. Association staff, is there anything instructors can do to help with classes that we can pick their brain on, and also let other instructors know as well? Is there anything that from your side or standpoint that you would like to see or hear or know about or even see consistency in? I mean, I heard the monitor breakouts. That's a good thing. And so we're going to start implementing that on a consistent basis. But anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I think just depending on the size of their class, I guess, and how many monitors there are, I would definitely suggest to make a monitor, or at least some of the monitors, co-hosts, just because like some of the classes might be 40, 50 people, and depending on the amount of members that don't know how to rename themselves, it definitely helps the instructor and the monitors all alike kind of have the ability to rename them. Because I, for myself, have a dozen members who just don't want to rename themselves, don't want to touch it, and the class will have 200 members in it. And, you know, I don't want to lose anybody. I want to make sure I get everybody. So I like having the capability to go in and rename as we can. That's my only suggestion that I have so far with Zoom.
Thanks. Kim, I think you had your hand raised a second ago.
Well, I was just wanting to know what classes y'all are seeing that students are best interested in right now.
Everything.
Well,
that's honestly true, yeah.
Members in McAllen, they've asked us about social media and technology a lot. Also, the contracts classes, they've all been asking about contract classes, and green designation has been suggested several times over.
Wow. Interesting.
So I can at least answer on a statewide level that we've had more education this last month than we had the previous Mays in years past. And so I think that going back to that, when you say what kind of education, I think that it is education, and that they can do that. They're pretty excited right now, and they're pretty much grasping at just about anything to make good use of their time at this moment. So, I mean, yes, traditionally contracts is a very common thing. I'm definitely seeing an uptick in technology, like you had said, Umberto, and social media strategies and things like that. We've even seen some niche classes as well that have been pretty popular. I think what we've always said as a general rule is that if you have a good instructor that's relevant and can manage their time, so if it's a 4-hour class and they're good at teaching that content for 4 hours and they don't have 3 hours of content and dancing the last hour, the people will stay engaged through the duration, regardless of the content. And so, usually it's because they really like the instructor and they like what they have to say and their expertise. And so, any other comments about what instructors can do to help with classes?
There was one comment in the chat about monitors not being given the ability to private chat. So that got brought up earlier. So it's difficult to call out our members who may be on the phone or not paying attention without that ability to private chat. So just a comment on that from earlier.
I'd like to comment on that, if I may. I don't use the private chat because if they're on their phone, they're not paying attention to the chat anyways. I kind of have a 3-step rule. I chat them. If I see that they're not even paying attention to the chat, I call them, I email them. If I still don't hear back by that point, and this is why I'm a fan of the waiting room, I kick them into the waiting room. Once they're in that waiting room, if they don't respond and get back to me, done. You're gone. I've given you multiple opportunities. I've worked with you. You got to give me some. So that's how I handle it. Now, again, that goes back to some people, like instructors. I know Marion, Rhonda, you guys don't like the waiting room. I get that. I didn't like it at first. But then when I started seeing the benefits of not removing someone, but putting them back in the waiting room, then they wake up and they're like, oh no, I don't want to get kicked off. Or they stay in their little bubble and I'm like, okay, bye. See you later. So that's just
and I don't mind the waiting room. I just want to make sure the notification is on.
No, I completely get that.
And that someone's managing the waiting room, because if they don't, we end up managing the waiting room.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was one thing, John, if I can add to that, that's very distracting. In some associations, the monitors are very attentive, and when they see something, I can't remember which association it was, but we actually had someone painting through the entire class, and the association staff sent me a picture, and we got on the phone and we talked about it. If we can see that, all of the other students can see that. And the associations that are hesitant about removing students like that make the entire class experience disruptive, because all of our eyes go to the person that's doing whatever it is that they're not supposed to do. And in some cases, when we leave the chat open, that's what the chat starts to, that's what they start chatting about. Can you believe she's doing this? So the more the staff can help us, like Elizabeth, I know she's got the 3-step rule, and she's chatting with me as well, saying, I'm going to give them a chance. And that helps us so that we can stay focused on the content and not get distracted on all of the things that's going on in the environment. So I do like that approach. And I have seen several associations do that, and it really does help us when you are monitoring the classes and taking care of disruptive behavior. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And we actually just talked about this in our session last week about ideas and best practices going forward. And the one thing we have not addressed up until this point is best practices for instructors and also best practices for association staff. And that is something that we are working on, Marion, just so that way we can have a general expectation of, hey, when classes occur, this is a general rule that we can all abide by as time progresses. And so hopefully we can all at least have an understanding of where the other person might be coming from in that capacity. And I will tell you one funny story as we're about to close out, going back to the idea of a waiting room. We accidentally set up a waiting room on one of our classes one time where we totally forgot about it. And when another class rolled around, it was talking about the wrong class in the waiting room. So going back to the idea of classroom management, it's good to know. It's good to know what to expect and that it's on there. And so it can happen at any time. So it's really good to make sure that we communicate and cross our T's and dot our I's before the class begins, so that we're not saying, please wait while this class begins, and it's not the class at all. And more importantly, no one even knew the waiting room existed. And so we had to make sure that that's all squared away going forward as well. But I think we're all learning together, and we really appreciate your time, senior instructors, for being a part of this, and to give us your feedback and to dialogue with us about like how best practices to make sure that our members are getting the best experience possible going forward. So we will definitely take this information and continue to pass this out, not only to association staff, but also to instructors alike, since you guys are representing them in this conversation. So we really appreciate your time, and unless anybody has any other comments, going once.
We had one quick question about whether virtual backgrounds are allowed.
Aha, that goes back into the best practices conversation. Generally speaking, it's not inherently a bad thing. I mean, obviously Candy has one on right now, and so does Pat and a few others. And so I think that it goes back to a general premise of your own association policies, if I were to guess. And it goes back to also, is it distracting or is it disruptive? And if it is a distracting or disruptive virtual background, then that's a problem. Or if somebody's abusing it because they found out a way to make a video recording and make that their virtual background to make it look like they're sitting in class, which can happen, that's a problem too. But otherwise, it's a general rule based upon association staff if it's disrupting or distractive. But that's our current policy at this time. If we get more staunch on it, we'll let you know. But that's a fair question. Thanks, Katie. Anything else? Awesome. We really appreciate your time. Yeah.
John,
go ahead.
Can I just jump in and thank everybody for being here? I appreciate all the association staff and all the instructors participating today. And you guys are all awesome. Appreciate you every single day. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you all. And just as a reminder, we're not meeting next week because that's AE Seminar Week. We will meet the following week on June the 16th, just so you guys know. But again, thank you for your time. I hope you all have a great day and a great week.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.